This is the Borough Keyport Workshop meeting for tonight. It's the first workshop we're actually having in quite a few years, I think. Michelle, will you call the meeting? Will you read Sunshine? Sorry.
This is a workshop meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport, Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting, as required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the amended meeting notice, which was posted on the bulletin boards filed with the Borough Clerk, sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger.
Thank you, Michelle. Will you do the roll call?
Councilmember Demarest. Councilmember Riley.
Here.
Councilmember Vecchio.
Here.
Councilmember Pepperoni. Councilmember McNamara.
Here.
Council President Davidson.
Here.
And Mayor Aranio.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, will everybody join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will everybody remain standing for a moment of silence for Augustinus Asabo and Wayne Brooks, who were both killed in the fire on Wednesday night at the Port North. Our thoughts and sympathies are with the families as well as the extended fire department families. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with the public hearing for the full year 2022 Community Development Block Grant, the CDBG application submission to the Monmouth County Office of Community Development at Beach Park and Freehold. Trevor, do you have it?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry, I forgot my easel tonight, so I think I'm just going to stand real quickly for this presentation. Every year, the county comes out with Community Development Block Grant funding. This is a county grant. It's through the U.S. government. We looked at a couple different areas, and we have proposed improvements to Beach Park. There's the existing pavilion, which we are proposing to replace to improve ADA accessibility, and a walkway to the pavilion from the sidewalk. The cost estimate is $225,000. It includes a gazebo, the foundation, a concrete pad in the sidewalk, as well as picnic tables for inside the pavilion. The grant is due next Friday, so we'll be looking for a resolution at the next council meeting for endorsement. Just any questions? I can answer any questions for the council.
I have a question. So the walkway, is it going to be where the shell path is, or how is the walkway going to be?
Yeah, so there is a shell walkway right now from the play structure to the gazebo area, and we're proposing to replace that with concrete, and then also to provide additional sidewalk from the sidewalk on First Street to the pavilion.
Are we removing that old gazebo that's there? That's not right. Okay.
Yes, that will be removed and replaced. We're proposing a gazebo in similar dimensions. That's 24 feet by 40 feet, so we're proposing just about the same size gazebo.
Is it going to be a gazebo similar to what we have down at the water pits?
Pavilion.
It's a what is it?
Pavilion.
Okay.
It won't have the railings. You won't walk up into it. It'll be flat surface.
Okay.
We'll also be flush to grade for ADA accessibility so that we can have ADA accessibility into the structure. Right now, currently there's a step get up into it, so we'll eliminate that step with a ramp up into it. It'll be all concrete from the walkway to the surface of the structure.
Okay, and then the patio concrete?
Patio inside is proposed to be concrete, so for that, for the structure, and the structure will be placed on top of the concrete and tied to the concrete.
How many picnic tables will fit in there?
We've proposed believe it's 4 tables. Do a couple extra if we wanted to, but for the grant application, that's what we're including with the application.
So they're removable?
They're removable, yes.
It's not that they're going to be built into the concrete?
Yes. Typically, we would strap them down, but they are removable just so they don't get stolen, but they are removable.
If the grant is obtained, what would you be thinking start-wise and how long of a process?
So typically, the grants are awarded toward the end of the calendar year. So there's usually presentations in September, and then they're voted on, and then the awards come out towards the end of the year. So it'll be a next year, 2024 project.
And how long does a pavilion usually take?
It takes about, they're usually prefab structures, so anywhere from 3 to 4 months for delivery once it's ordered. So you have to put it out to bid for construction if it get ordered, so you're probably looking at a 6 to 8 month time frame. Like one of the requirements for CDBG is the money has to be spent within 1 year. I can only request extensions, but it is a 1 year expenditure period.
And this is separate from the grant that NPP is doing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it will tie in all
Right,
together,
yeah.
right, to complete the project.
Trevor, can you go through the pathway again?
Sure. So
Okay.
Thanks. So this is the existing play structure here. This is the clamshell walkway from the play structure to the pavilion. This is the parking lot, so we would be installing new concrete sidewalk from the play structure to the pavilion, and then from the pavilion out to the existing sidewalk on First Street.
Will there be any lighting in it?
We are proposing electric service that we tie to the existing service next to the existing structure.
The boathouse?
Called the boat ramp structure, yes. So we're proposing a service for that, so we can include lighting, security system if you wanted to, cameras, anything like that we'd be able to provide electric service for.
And what material was the pathway going to be? Is it concrete?
Proposing concrete, we can discuss that, but concrete's usually best for maintenance purposes.
You make all those final decisions if you get awarded the grant. This is just an application to get an idea, to have the board vote on it, to see if they feel it's a good project. And CDBG, what it does is it tries to bring community to enjoy the public areas. So making it ADA compliant and safe is something that I believe that it would be a good fit for the voting for this application.
And it would work hand in hand with the MPP grants as opposed to impede it in any way?
Correct. Nicole and I have been working together.
Is it a match grant?
It's not a match grant,
No.
it's, maximum funding amount is $200,000, so we typically would request that amount, and usually grants come in anywhere between $125,000 and $150,000.
And you're estimating 225 for the whole thing?
225, correct. We usually try to go a little bit above 200 just so we can request the full amount. We also did include some landscaping and restoration in there, so if we wanted to add in landscaping, shrubbery trees, I know there's some
There's a couple of
landscaping
dead
out
trees
there.
there, the
Yeah.
veterans trees.
So that's just a line item we included in there. Again, with the design, you can choose what type of landscaping you want to see out there.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Public hearing, Mayor?
Yeah, we're gonna go into executive session.
But not before we do the public hearing on the community development.
Oh, is that, yeah.
Yeah, so you can call for a motion.
Okay. Wait a minute, what do you mean?
No.
Oh, for the hearing, okay. So we have a motion to open to the public for the CDBG hearing. Motion to open.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody have a comment? John?
Just a question, John Rolla, 34 Broad Street. Trevor, there was a question asked about the lighting, and I know we've had another presentation for Cedar Street, and now we're doing a presentation for Beach Park, which is First Street, and there has been some vandalism in that park in the previous months and last year. Maybe the town, since it's going to be other monies drawing from a pot, that the town should think about if we're putting any money from our open space tax into this project, that we really should look into securing that area as well as Cedar Street Park with cameras.
Yes.
It's just a suggestion, and my reason for being is because we're starting to spend a lot of money to beautify our community, which I support, but maintaining its beauty from free of vandalism and damage would only strengthen, I believe, our case. And we want people to use it, but we don't want them to abuse it.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mike Coughlin, 12 First Street, right across from the park. First of all, can the general public get to see what everybody else already has seen here? Is that possible, please? Hey, if you don't mind, can you, again, just show everybody here exactly what you're talking about?
Sure. So you can see on the map, this is Beach Park. This is the parking lot to the left of Beach Park. This is First Street on the bottom of the page. These are the townhouses across the street from the park. This is where the existing pavilion is. It'll be replaced in
Excuse me, sir.
the same location as the
Sir.
existing pavilion.
Look, thank you. Appreciate it.
The play structure is located in this location, right outside the beach, and then this would be the concrete sidewalk from the play structure to the pavilion, and then also sidewalk from the First Street sidewalk to the new pavilion.
And is the new pavilion going to be consistent with what they have right now, or is it going to be larger, or what?
Size would be approximately the same size. It's 14, proposed to be 14 by 40, which is the same size as the existing. The only other change, it would be an open construction. Instead of having the railing and everything, it would be more open to promote entrance into the pavilion from all sides.
Consistent with what John Merla just mentioned, I would like to suggest that we have some sort of a park closing time. We've had persistent issues relative to, as John mentioned, vandalism and damage and things of that nature. The last several years, we've had a fair amount of squatters or people that just have a tendency to stay there overnight for weeks and weeks on end. Overnight parking. You know, if we close the park at a convenient hour, whatever, you know, the council deems appropriate, I think it would have a tendency to reduce a lot of the issues that we have in the park relative to transient behavior or destructive behavior as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that everybody knows, we are also working on an ordinance, and Chief Torres actually has been leading it up for overnight, so that people don't stay overnight in any of our parks or any of our areas in the town. So she's working on it.
That's very good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mike?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. A couple of questions. This meeting was posted on the borough website, and right below the notice was a notice of affidavit of publication. Does this process require public notice?
It's a public meeting.
No.
He's saying does it require a
Does it
notice?
require a notice in the newspaper?
It's a regular public, are you talking about the
hearing?
meeting itself or the
The
hearing?
hearing does
Hearing?
require a public notice in the newspaper, yes.
All right, so if you look on the borough website, the affidavit of publication is for the state of Wisconsin by a notary from the state of Wisconsin? What's going on?
That's the Gannett newspaper, their office is in Wisconsin.
All right, I scanned all the public notices on the New Jersey Notice website, and there was no notice of this meeting.
I believe believe the Open Public Meetings Act requires us to deliver notice to the newspaper. It doesn't actually require that they publish it, so I'm sure we delivered notice as we,
Are you serious? It doesn't have to be
I
noticed?
don't understand his question. What was
he's
your
saying that he
question?
didn't see the actual notice in
It was
print.
a display ad that was in the main section of the newspaper. It wasn't a legal ad.
It wasn't a legal notice.
There was a notice, but it's not a legal ad. It's a display ad, and it was published in the main section of the newspaper.
Does that meet the requirement for
Yeah.
public notice?
Yes, it does. And also, I would just echo what I just said before, you're only required to transmit it to the newspaper.
Pardon?
You're only required to transmit the notice to the newspaper. It's up to whatever they do with it.
I've never seen anything like that with planning board notices, ever.
In any event, it was published, so we're A-okay.
I'm questioning whether it was published as a notice. And
It
is
was
it
published.
required as a notice?
It's published, as Michelle said, as a display ad, which is different than your typical notice. It's a display ad notice, which is in the main section of the
Right.
newspaper.
Does
Which
that
is-
meet the requirements?
Yes.
Relative to, and the actual notice, it says that to review the contents of the plan. Why weren't the contents put on the borough website ahead of this meeting?
Does it need to be? It
No.
doesn't need to be.
Well, there's some handicapped people that can't see this.
Okay, Mike,
And-
don't get loud, we're just, I understand that you're talking to us, but we're talking as normal, not screaming, and there's no reason to get loud for this.
The notice says for public to comment on the contents, but you didn't provide the contents ahead of time. So, and then you have, in addition, you have approved the resolution for the NPP to work on this park. Is there a reason we're not working both of these plans together?
They are working them together, and that's what Kim just said a few minutes ago.
Well, it's interesting. Are any of the neighbors within 200 feet going to be involved in the plan?
Yes.
They are?
Right now, what it is we're applying for the grant. That's all that Trevor is doing right now.
I'm talking about the other half of the NPP portion of the problem. NPP has quite a record of dealing with issues in the V zone, flood problem. And this site is in a V zone. Is this plan going to meet all the requirements of the flood damage prevention ordinance?
Trevor, can you answer that?
Yes, and it will, yes.
Okay. Is there a reason we can't reuse the existing building?
The gazebo you're
Yeah,
talking
they
about?
just thinking
That gazebo is pretty much shot.
I believe that gazebo has been moved at least one time, and it's in poor condition.
And it's not even ADA compliant.
And so that gazebo floated away during Sandy and was moved back and has been anchored at that site. That's the history. And so you're saying we can't replace the wooden floor with this concrete floor and use all the upper structure?
The proposal is to replace it in kind.
Oh, yeah. At a cost of, what, $250,000?
But we're also going to apply for this grant. Like, wouldn't we want something new in a brand new spot?
I can think of other things that we could apply for. Right. So this structure is going to meet all the requirements of flood damage prevention ordinance, and it will be certified by our floodplain manager before it's constructed.
Correct.
Okay. And the residents along First Street do not have to worry about these picnic tables, etc., coming up banging into their houses.
That's correct.
So all the picnic tables are going to be anchored.
Yes,
Yes.
that's what he had said before in his presentation.
And trash cans, etc.
There's no trash cans proposed, just there's no trash cans proposed.
That's why I just mentioned here, the NPP program has to meet, this is a V zone. So will the NPP program also adhere to all the flood damage prevention ordinance requirements, and the borough floodplain manager will be involved in the process?
Kim, can you answer on that question?
Yes, we will do everything that's required.
Okay, because we have quite a history of missing. And Trevor can validate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Jack? Oh.
Carol Goodhue, 16 First Street. Good down? Okay. First of all, I just want to thank everybody here today because we really have a great opportunity here to take a beautiful piece of land and make it something really special. And so by applying for the grants and helping us to get this and make it beautiful, I think is a great opportunity. So I just want to thank everybody for that. I wasn't quite sure what the plans were for it, so I kind of took a blank space approach and said, you know, if I could do anything with the way parks are being developed today and outdoor spaces are being developed, what would I want to see in that space? You know, I live right across the street. Most of my neighbors do.
What's your address? I'm not sure.
16 First Street.
Thank you.
So really being able to see something that the whole community could use and you know, appreciate, you know, is something that I would love to be able to see. So I did put together just a few slides for the committee.
Okay, can you give it to Chief Torres and she can distribute? Thank you.
So first of all, I just kind of took a stab at what I thought the goals were. So one was just to encourage leveraging the beauty of the waterfront so that we have a beautiful space and we just continue to make that. Two, to provide a space for families of all ages to enjoy and participate in the space. And that the space does not require a high maintenance, because I know that would be an issue for the town. I do agree with what Mike had said earlier. We want to put an ordinance in place to limit the late night, you know, going on there and the camping overnight and those types of things. But we would also want to, as Shannon Torres is working on, be able to enforce the speed limits and stuff like that so everybody is safe. So whatever we do with the space, we want to make sure that we're also making sure it's a safe environment for everybody. There were 5 different elements that I thought were important for us to consider with the space. One was low maintenance, but a naturalistic green space for gardenways and pathways. We have a beautiful kind of waterfront look, and whatever we do from a natural landscape should really kind of mimic what that space is. 2 would be to have seating built for community gathering, something where they can sit, they can eat, they can play, they can share. The third thing was to maybe enhance the play space so that it also included activities that maybe adults could use as well, but it created a space where everybody wanted to be part of. The next thing was to utilize lighting that enhances the space, and then to have attractive fencing that keeps people from going into, or children I should say, into the street on First Street, because we know that that's been an issue with the playground. We want to make sure they're safe. They don't have toddlers running out into the street.
Carol, before you go any further, Trevor, on the fencing, is there any fencing proposed in that area?
There is not, but that would be something that we could take a look at. I know there is
Yeah,
fencing
that would be
around the
important.
play structure, so we could take a look at
That's actually part of the NPP part.
For that part, okay. no problem.
So I took a stab at each one of those 5 things, and I just kind of expanded on each page what I thought that would be, and gave some images of what other communities have done. Not that these have to be the ones that we go with, but it's just to start that process of saying, what could we look like? You know, how would we like our community to be? So one on the, you know, looking at the low maintenance naturalistic space, I put some visions of different seaside types of communities where they've used natural landscapes that kind of enhance what that project could look like. You know, and I think we could even look at the whole space and say what would make the most sense. But, you know, even looking at that, how do we blend seating with green space? How do we offer shading that doesn't obstruct the views for everybody? The next was seating built for the community.
There's a lot of unique seating that's going on right now in park spaces, where you can see where it looks and works into what the architectural structure is of the space, but it also provides a great place for people to gather, eat, share. So I think whether we have fun with it, with color, or we came to a natural space, I think that's something the community can discuss and be part of, but I think it could be a great space for us. The second piece of it is enhancing the play space. There's nothing wrong with the playground as it is, but you can see that there are things that we can do creatively with the underspace to make it just be really exciting, that we can take into a whole playscape along with, a seating spaces and really make it look great. I do ask the question though, because I never see that parking lot fully utilized. Maybe it's because people have to pay for it. Whether we could even take a portion of the parking lot and actually increase the park space there. So that would be something that,
The parking lot there, they only pay if they're bringing their boat into the water.
Okay.
So it's not just everybody has to pay, anybody can actually utilize it because it's part of Green Acres, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wasn't sure if it could just be brought down a little bit and that could be part of your work area that you're looking into. The next was to provide inclusive activities as part of the architecture. There's a lot of creative spaces that people are doing, whether they're the tables that include chess sets, or they're spaces that look like wooden structures that people can do ping pong or whatever, that creates a space that people want to go to and brings people in to the community to not just go to the restaurants and bring their food out there, but also have play areas. And then utilizing lighting that enhances the space. That isn't necessarily just big lights and spotlights that are put on there. It could be low voltage lights. It could be lights that are energy efficient, but things that actually are giving a kind of an ambiance to what the whole space could look like. And the last thing, I just gave some pictures of different types of fencing that could be used along First Street to have that safety element for us, but to also make it look beautiful and keep in timing with what the whole space looks like. So I just wanted to give the council some thoughts,
Thank you.
On what could make it great for all of us.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Jack? Oh.
Hi, Anne Marie Reed, 42 First Street. I agree with what people have said so far. I like the idea, but I had a big question about the playground itself. I don't feel it's adequate enough. It's used a lot, and kids wait turns for 2 swings.
Well, that part, that swing set and everything is being done by the NPP. That whole thing is.
Okay, and the other question that I had was, because I would love to see less sand around the play area and more actual rubber or protective things.
And we have that. That's
yes,
part
right.
of the NPP.
Also, there is a whole lot of running of the sand and the sandbars onto the sidewalks. Are we going to put some sort of retaining wall or something? It just runs onto the sidewalk. Weeds and sand.
We'll look into that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. That was my main thing.
Now, Jack.
Jack Straub, 235 Main Street. This is for the governing body, not for Trevor. I mentioned, I think, last time we were talking about Beach Park, maybe addressing some of the parking spaces because they're all the long spaces for the trailers. Maybe there's an opportunity where the museum used to be to put some trailers there. This might be a good time for you to address that. Since you're doing other work there, maybe you could, maybe half a dozen of those spaces could be regular car spaces. And those trailers, some of those could go across the street, so the whole parking lot isn't trailers. But my point was, this might be the time to address it if you can. Thank you.
Elmer?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. And with regard to this project on First Street, I think it's pretty good and excellent and everything like that. Are you all possibly considering putting in a water sprinkler system there?
No.
So, well,
Not
For
at
in
this
case the
time.
kids who get hot or whatever, the water gets spit up from the ground, it'll cool them off as they play?
That wasn't part of it,
Okay, well, something worth considering, but okay. But oh, yeah, it's a good plan, so hey, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mike?
Just a summary statement. You've heard a lot of input from the residents adjacent to the park, and it's really solid. My concern is that how do they get into the NPP process? Because we were not involved in the NPP process up to now for the floodgates and things like that. So
Yeah.
you heard 2 or 3 really excellent inputs, and they need to be brought to the placemaking NPP process.
So
And
that
these are-
everybody knows, we have the MPP meetings, and now they are public, that anybody can attend the NPP meetings. So we did change that, so anybody can come to voice their concerns with the MPP also.
But why can't we have 1 or 2 members from the neighborhood on the NPP? And, because they have, it reminds me, if you go to a planning board, one of your neighbors, if I want to extend my parking driveway 10 feet, I have to notify all my neighbors within 10 and 200 feet, and they get the opportunity to come and participate in the planning board hearing. These are neighbors within 200 feet. They are homes, very valuable homes, highly taxed, right across the street from the park. Why can't, you heard really excellent input from them. Why can't you include 2 or 3 of them in the process? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Do you have a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're actually going to go into executive session. Jason, will you please?
Yeah, I'll just recommend, Mayor, that we amend Resolution 2023-208 to include additional matters generally falling within the attorney-client privilege related to the brownfield sites.
Okay,
So it'll be executive session for the contract negotiations and that.
okay. I'm going to read the resolution.
Whereas the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, a public body, corporate and politic in the state of New Jersey, is subject to certain requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act provides that an executive session not open to the public may be held for certain specified purposes when authorized by resolution. Whereas it is necessary for the borough to discuss in a session not open to the public attorney-client privilege matters related to contract negotiations and the brownfield sites. Therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, as follows. The aforementioned recitals are incorporated herein as are fully set forth at length. The Mayor and Council assembled in public session on July 11, 2023, and determined that an executive session closed to the public shall be held on July 11, 2023, at approximately 7:37 p.m. at Borough Hall located at 70 West Front Street, Keyport, New Jersey, for the discussion of matters related to the specific items designated above. This resolution will take effect immediately.
We have a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstains or absent? Thank you. So we're going to go into executive session. Are we coming out with?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to take any formal action after the executive session. The approximate duration, 30 minutes, I would say.
And so that everybody knows, the reason that we're doing executive sessions prior to the end of the meeting is because we pay for our professionals to be here at the meeting. So if they can complete what they need to complete in the beginning, we don't have to pay extra.
Right. I will say we are taking formal action regarding payment of bills, though not related to the subject matter of the executive session. So there'll be further discussion after the meeting. After the session.
Thank you. Okay, we're going back into our workshop meeting, and Kim, I think you have the first part of the workshop meeting agenda.
So this is what's entitled project from back, or what you guys decided you wanted to talk about. There was one thing I had removed, which is like question later on, that we wouldn't
we would know that.
And I literally just threw this together myself. Mocked up.
So Kim, since this is actually our first workshop, and we don't know how this actually works, you've got to actually walk us through.
Okay, I think between myself and the attorney, we could
Okay.
more or less tell you the workshop meetings, or where we can actually get together with our topics, we make an agenda, and it helps you make movement at your next meeting, where everyone is informed, we address any issues before it actually is up on the agenda.
Okay. So do we want to, how are we starting this? Are we going right into the communication and dissemination of information?
So first thing is I would like just, let's not add too many topics to your workshop agendas. If it's things that are going to be worked out, if we're creating ordinances, or such, because you want to be able to complete what it is that you set them to do. So if you, I find that if you put too many items on your workshop, it goes nowhere, right? And then by the time you get to the last item, you're already done. And yeah, so that is my suggestion. Yeah, so I did get a few things. Our usual borough council is not here, so certain ordinances and other items that we would address, we're going to do it in August. But as of tonight, these are the different items that we thought would be good to start with, to have discussions about. So that's what's on the agenda tonight. So yes, the first topic is what.
So basically, anything that's on what Kim just handed out, this is what everybody has supplied to have
Yeah.
on the council and myself for the whole year.
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah.
We can add to it as we're going along.
Yeah,
but
and
each
we'll
one-
triage things are gonna come up, Councilmember Riley, she wants to talk about everything tonight, see what's on the list, and then she's gonna compile her list in, the fashion that she did. So,
Kim, just a quick question. Is CD supposed to be me on this list?
let me think, I don't know.
'Cause I don't see my name on
Chris,
here,
oh,
or any
you
of
know
the topics that I've...
Oh, you know what, yeah, it must be on another page in the copy. But I can actually pull up yours as well.
No,
Well, yeah.
it's fine, just...
But this isn't like a living document, like I said, the mayor was actually in my office, my Excel froze, so I couldn't get things printed, so I just had to kind of cut and paste out of old emails, well, not old emails, but emails that we have. So, yeah, so I apologize.
No problem.
Okay, so the first on there is the communication, dissemination of information. So I'm not sure where that came from.
It was from
Oh, okay. But if I'm not on the list, we can
No,
forego it
this
if
is
you
just
want
to give everyone an idea.
So I guess around the communication, dissemination of information is a little bit of clarity of our role and information we're supposed to be getting as council members from administration, from anybody up above. I do feel as though it's almost from when we had Jay here and previous mayors, the information that came to the council people was plentiful. Whether we responded to it or not, it was more FYI, be aware, know this, know that. I have, and I won't speak for the rest of the days, but personally I have been feeling as though there's a void of communication being sent out to council members. Again, I won't speak for everybody else, but to myself. And it puts myself, in a bad spot when members of the community come and speak to us. They're like, hey, we heard this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any information on it. Well, how do you not know that? You're council president. You are sitting on the dais. So I guess a little bit of clarity regarding what information are we able to have? What are we able to maintain, be aware of? I believe every one of us up here understands confidentiality and attorney-client privilege. So I don't think that's an issue. But I do believe it is an issue of having knowledge of general information that's happening within the borough that doesn't seem to be forthcoming. And I don't think it makes us look very good, again, to the general public when we're out there and we're the ones being asked questions and we don't have answers, we don't have good responses, and we have, frankly, sometimes incorrect information. And I don't think that sheds a good light for any one of us, and it doesn't put the borough in a good position. So that clarification would be helpful.
And that's the comments, or should I say something to go along with this?
So basically, all of the information that comes from Kim to myself as the mayor, if it has to do with specific departments, I try to send it out to whoever needs it, or Kim does it on herself, you know, to everybody. So if you're talking about, like, me not sending you information, I try to send as much information as possible, and if you're not getting it, I mean, you can always call me too. I mean, we can always have that conversation, and I think that's basically what's happening, and I think having these workshop meetings is going to help everybody, because everybody can speak about everything open in public, except for attorney-client. Yeah.
So, okay.
Am I correct? You've been sending out what you needed, I've been sending out what I get. So is there anything specific that you'd like to speak about?
Well, again, I'm concerned, I'm second on DPW, who's first on it for a couple of years, and I can say since January, I've received virtually no information. So does that mean that DPW is running like a well-oiled machine and everything is great and there's no communication that needs to be put out to the liaisons that need to be made aware of?
I don't really have any issues right now that are outstanding. Maybe we go over these liaison roles as well, and maybe we have meetings with the department heads, with the liaisons and myself.
That would be great.
Because if something was done in the past that I'm not aware of, it was never brought to my attention.
I think when things were done, if there was something going on that the liaisons need to be made aware of, it was communicated, FYI. And I'm not saying we need to know everything about everybody's area, but, I mean, again, I'll speak for myself with DPW. I find it very hard to believe that since January, there's only been a handful of things that are concerning or good, bad, whatever the case may be regarding the department that haven't even swung my way at all. So,
So
again,
personnel items, I usually wouldn't
well,
send out.
understandable.
Yeah, that's
I'm not speaking
a
for
majority probably was my.
So it was just, I guess, the clarification on that, and I guess the roles for the liaisons.
And actually, we had spoke, Kim and I, what we're going to do is go into executive session next council meeting with Vicki, so she can explain everybody's roles, what they're responsible for as a council person, as a council president, as a mayor, and she's going to go through all of that. So that everybody has the same, like, right now, I think everybody thinks, you know, like, oh, when something happens, I have to go out to do it. Not me, but a council person. Our job is to legislate the laws of the town, our council job. But what's happening is some people were calling certain departments and they really don't, that's not their responsibility. Most goes through the business administrator, so which is very important for Vicki to actually walk through everything for everybody. And I think that didn't happen, right? Yeah.
That's all on my list for today.
Okay. The next thing up is the
Does
tech.
anybody else
Oh, does
have
anybody have
questions?
any questions?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I'll just speak as
Yeah.
from last year. I mean, I was copied on everything. So, I mean, I was inundated, but should something have happened, I knew everything as council president that was going on, for whatever that's worth. You know,
Are you speaking as council president?
last
I
year,
see.
yeah.
No,
Well,
not
Lori
your
is talking
report.
Well, she
as
both,
council
she
president.
mentioned
Oh,
both.
I mean,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
do feel, I mean, that
Yeah.
if I had to get up and run, could I run a meeting in place of the mayor, she couldn't be here? 100%. Do I feel as though I'd be able to answer the questions with the information that's forthcoming if I needed to? Absolutely not. And I would defer to you or to the attorney to make that happen. So I guess the role just needs to be clarified as to what is the role
Right.
and the responsibility.
Anybody else?
As someone who's not the council president, I didn't feel that we weren't being communicated with. I certainly don't know everything, but if I didn't know something, I also felt that I go to Kim for everything. Like, and not in a bad way, like, it's so nice to have someone. And even with questions here, like, we sit up here, I didn't ask questions up here because I asked them of you because I thought that that's what we're supposed to do up here. I have a question, I ask him, she gives me the answer, I relay it, as opposed to coming up here and doing it up here, like I thought we were supposed to do that. So just finding out exactly what we're supposed to do and where our roles are. But I appreciate you answering all my questions all the time.
The next is the tattoo ordinance. The reason that this came up is that a business owner had approached us about creating a part of the ordinance for permanent makeup tattoos, which, you know, that's a new type of business. The person actually has been working to get her license, received her license, and now she's wondering, we only have an ordinance for 3 tattoo parlors. But that's not a tattoo parlor, it's a total different business. So I think that Vicki drew up the changes to include it. So is this something that the council would like to consider?
I would strongly like to consider it.
You can see that the attorney did more or less do what's called a red line copy to add certain verbiage, and that would include the body art tattoo. And
I
that's
know
all
one of
on
the
the
main-
documents that you have in your agenda. It's not for the public, it's in draft form at this time.
I know one of the main reasons that it's become so popular is because of cancer treatments.
Yes.
And they use it for people that lose their hair, and I think it's a nice other alternative than going into a tattoo parlor if they're looking for a different type of atmosphere to have something like that done.
With the changes, do we have to update the number of licenses that are allowed then as well?
Yeah, so it's under number 5, you'll see, it states that each, it would go from 3 to 4, or whatever number it is that you decided.
When we state a number, that's just the maximum, it doesn't mean we
Correct.
have to issue that many licenses.
Correct.
Okay. So I mean, like, we could say, we could make it 6, so that we're not back here next week and
Right.
somebody
And that's
else.
something, and that's something like you guys discussing today, we'll prepare that, so that way when we introduce, that's not what we're discussing when we introduce.
Right. So at least we all know what we want to do ahead of time.
So, did anybody have an idea for me?
About how many licenses or?
Yeah, and if you're in agreement to add this as a different business into our town, because basically it's not a tattoo parlor, it's really permanent makeup. I think that's what it's actually called.
And they can do this with, so with a license, so if there's a salon in town that chooses to do this as one of an added benefit, is that going to count as a license?
It is.
Or it doesn't,
It does.
even if it's going under a regular hair salon?
Supportive health,
They still do
come in
that
and
online.
inspect them just like a tattoo parlor. That's
And
why
they
you have to
actually
change
have
it.
certain regulations of what you need to perform that.
Yeah, which is spelled out in the ordinance.
Do we have to identify the type of license, if it's like for cosmetic permanent makeup versus
No, it's
tattoo
just,
parlor?
no, yeah, we did a pretty extensive work to look into this.
It just
And
includes
it's
it.
body
So if we
art.
open it up to, like, Councilwoman McNamara said 6, that means that we could do 1 more, but then we could have 2 more tattoo parlors come in as well.
Yeah.
Mhm. We don't have to approve it, but we have to include it. So somebody can come before, and, you know, say they come next week, we approve it, and someone applies with the application license, and someone else comes in with the tattoo parlor, and you have 6 licenses, they can actually.
Jason, being that there's no differentiation, there's not a difference between body art and tattoo parlor, that is correct, right? So we can't write the ordinance that if it's for body art,
Right.
a tattoo parlor would probably say say the best body art.
Right.
That's correct.
Does anybody have any issues with any of the added verbiage?
I'm fine with the added verbiage, I'm torn with the number of licenses.
So I don't know if everyone wants to think about it and maybe get back to me by Friday. And I'll communicate with everyone what it is that the number is.
Have we had more than one person come to us with this?
One so far.
Just one, but it's something that we should be ahead of. We should have probably done this earlier because this has been being done for a while. Different, towns, different studios.
Yeah, I knew it to fall under more like medical versus.
You would think, right?
You would think,
Like
right?
Staten Island,
But
yeah,
no.
a lot of it fell there.
Tattoo.
And it is something good to have in the town, something new, especially with cancer patients. Okay, are we in agreement for Friday?
Sure.
Okay. The next is a community garden ordinance.
I do believe that Councilmember McNamara had brought up that we were going to review the community garden ordinance, if there were any changes that had to be made before we adopt it.
Yeah,
An
the draft.
introduction was already done.
Oh, no, we didn't do an introduction because we only had a draft.
Did it have to be introduced?
No, it was introduced as a draft, but it wasn't
Introduced.
introduced, it was introduced. It was definitely introduced
This year?
this year, yes. But the
So
format.
it's available online for the public?
No, because the format was not proper for it to be, it wasn't a proper ordinance format. It was really kind of like draft like this tattoo ordinance that we have today.
So it wasn't
So-
available to the public?
No, not
Okay.
since it's been introduced. It has not been set for a public hearing or posted online. But if it's good as it is now, the format, I did get the proper format from the attorney. I can notice it for a public hearing and post it online.
So I would say that I definitely have comments and changes that should be made. It specifically, first off, I mean, I'm all about the community garden. I mean, I think it's great to have, a place for residents to grow organic produce and have a space, and there's a lot of people who donate their stuff over to the food pantry and things like that. I think it brings people together for a good outdoor activity. So I'm all about that. There's 30 plots over there. The draft ordinance says that the plots are 4 foot by 30 foot. They are not. They are 4 foot by 8 foot. The draft ordinance says that...
What section is that?
It's section 4.
What backyard?
So it says 4 foot by 30 foot, therefore 4 foot by 8. It says $50 for a resident. We currently charge $25, which I think is the right place. After researching Middletown, Marlboro, Homedale, in terms of comparable rates, I think the 25 is the right. The one thing I noticed with all the other communities, they actually also do offer a discount to seniors. I don't know that we have to do that, but I'm just saying that's something I've seen every place else. The draft that's here says that the season is May 1st through November 15th. I don't know how many people here do gardening or do any vegetable gardening, but May 1st is really late. Peas go in for St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
So March, is absolutely you're putting stuff in the ground. The current community garden goes from March through February. It is a full year. For example, we put in our garlic in October. We harvested in June, so we have stuff in that plot over winter. I'm not really sure why it would be a 6-month. It's currently a year. I've seen a lot of the other community gardens, you know, do at least 10 months, but also then say, if you have things, cold weather crops that are still viable, you can leave them. So I don't understand why we would only offer 6 months. Then the compost, that came up. There was, I guess, some conversation that DEP said, you know, on borough property, we couldn't have compost. There is an exclusion for community gardens, and I know that the form for that was forwarded to you guys with comment from the DEP, Mr. Patel, who specifically said which exemption to use, exemption number 2, and it's fine to have the compost. The one thing I noticed with some of the gardens, because they all community gardens have compost piles or bins, some sort of structure. Some of them make a decision to separate diseased plants and weeds and do them separately, have a separate pickup or something for that. They all provide water, tool sheds, things like that. So I guess the main things to me would be, you know, it looks like this might be from, you know, something else, the 4 by 30 for $50. You know, I didn't see that in any of the ones locally that I researched, so I'm not sure. But yeah, ours are 4 by 8, not 4 by 30, and they are currently $25, which is in line with, you know, the 3 neighboring community garden communities that I researched. And they're definitely, compost is the other thing that I think is really important.
I believe that the 50 was because right now the borough does not get an administrative fee. I believe that it only goes to the garden club, the fee.
And right, and they pay all the maintenance, they buy the wood chips, they do all that.
Yeah, we have to pay like the liability insurance, we should be processing this through the borough. It's the proper way to handle a revenue.
Those are actual costs that are incurred.
That are incurred.
So it makes sense to offset it with a small fee.
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, Marlboro has 4 by 10s, so 2 feet longer, they charge $40. Homedale has 4 by 8.5, they charge $20. Middletown has 8 by 16, so double the size of ours, and they do charge $50. That's double the size. So,
yeah,
so that's why I said, I mean, I feel like
decide,
what we currently charge is in line with what neighboring communities do. I mean,
so my question because I agree that May is too late. But then it should, because you do overwinter, it really should be like March to March, because then you don't have to worry about who's getting what plot, at what time, especially if you move around.
well, and usually what they do at most of them, if you're a member in good standing, you do get the right to stay in your same plot if you want. The bottom of the form usually says, you know, do you want to stay in the garden? Would you prefer another location if one becomes available? You know, maybe you want something more center or something, but they usually do. And it's mixed. Some allow non-residents, you know, if there's availability and they charge a little bit more. But yeah, the current language for the garden is March through February, so it goes the full calendar year.
How does the rest of the council feel on that? Same thing?
Kathleen, real quick, how many plots are there?
30.
There are 30? So as far as the non-residents, is that something the garden club would be interested in having, or is it filled up now with residents?
I know this year we had somebody from Cliffwood Beach that was interested, and, you know, we couldn't even give them the option. I don't think people are adverse to it, because we have a lot of people from Cliffwood who joined the garden club, you know, but can't be part of the community garden.
Cam, do you happen to have an idea of what the cost to the borough would be to operate?
I mean, if the cost that, what we're paying, Kathleen, how much did you charge right now?
25.
25. So you figure if you take the administrative cost of the borough employee that is gonna process the paperwork, then processes that they now have to purchase the goods for the community garden, which would be DPW getting the goods, I would think that probably $40 would be safe. I would rather though do a little bit of homework on that, and I could probably get you that in a day.
So the cost is because we're adding in borough actions.
Yeah, but it's borough property, so the
No, I know.
other way to do it would be that we create a space that we concession out, and then that entity would pay the borough to use the property, and then they would charge what they wanted to charge. Is that right, Jason? Is that-
Yeah, but it's probably more efficient for you to do it the way you propose.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The compost issue, was it being used correctly? Were there issues with it?
There were.
It was more like just a place to
It
leave
was
garbage,
mixed,
correct?
It was mixed materials, and there is a fee. You do have to get a permit, and you do have to keep up with that. And this year, we decided not to do that because we have had so many DEP issues that I walked into, that we were trying to stay out of any additional violations.
I mean, my suggestion would be to be very specific with the language about the composting. That's all, and whether it is, if you feel that there's,
Yeah,
mixed,
that's up to you guys.
Did they think it was a hazard?
I don't know if it was, they just said it wasn't permitted,
It wasn't permitted on any borough property
Yeah.
at that time, when they
Well,
came out.
you had to have a
I
special
understand, but
permit.
when they came out, that's
And the
their
type that was
specific-
found, right? It was considered debris, not compost.
Oh, sure.
Just to clarify, Kathleen, you said the garden club buys all the supplies?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're talking about buying supplies, so what supplies is the borough going to be purchasing?
Well,
We would have to
everything
buy
will
the
flip
supplies.
over.
Oh, so now it's going to flip over, so the garden club will no longer be buying the supplies.
Correct.
The garden club will go to the borough,
Right,
say
we
we
would
need
fall into local public
1, 2,
contracts
3,
for
4, and then go out, and then, okay.
So I know that there was mention in here about the garden club. And the community garden shall be managed by the Keyport Garden Club, who shall enforce the rules and regulations. So that's all they're doing. Okay.
I mean, this is up to you. I mean, this is just a document that council drew up, but that's up for you guys to massage around the way you would like to have it. And I will follow whatever you guys legislate.
I definitely think it should be 1 year as well, because then if you have that gap of time, where does that fall in responsibility? Who's tilling somebody's soil and ruining their zucchinis or something like that? Don't want to lose zucchinis. So would you be looking for additional language to add into this? for
If you wanted to add something to it, yes. Or if you wanted to take
So
something
you're
out.
asking, I'm changing the plot size 4 to 8.
And the fee.
The fee, we can leave that to be determined with discussion. If everybody wants to send me a number, or if you want to go with the 40, which it might be, I really would like to.
Maybe ask
Take a
the
look.
garden club what kind of cost they incurred
Right.
when they were taking care of it and see if it's.
I think, that's what Kathleen said, it was $25, right? And
No,
And it
not the fee, the cost, like if
cost
they
to
were buying.
maintain.
They were bringing, did you guys, was it an equal?
I think when Kim was here, she said that there was about $4,000 in the account. So, I mean, they were certainly ahead of
Right.
expenses. But now there'll be additional expenses if it's running through the borough, right?
Kathleen, let me ask you something.
And then a March
So does
1st to
each,
February 28th or 29th, or March 2nd to March 1st, is that going to be?
I think that would make more sense.
Does each member have a key lock?
It's a combo.
It's a combo, okay. So the borough has that too, like, in case they have, and the fire department?
No, we didn't have that.
You do now, right?
Yeah.
So we have that, so that should actually be in there. that the combination for the barrel, you know, it should actually be for the police, the fire, they should have it also.
Right, almost like a Knox box.
Right. In case they ever have to get in there for anything. Anything else to add in there? Okay, so you're good, Kim?
Okay, I'll give it to the attorney to make changes, and I'll advise if the policy is much different from the $40.
Okay, the next is DPW lease, but I believe, Kim, you're gonna speak on that.
Yeah, this is just going to be quite brief. This is a draft lease agreement, so it's not made for public at this time. It's something that if we wanted to go over the terms, we would do it in an executive session. I do want you to know that the lease is up on July 31st. It was not renegotiated at the end of last year. I have met with the owners of the property. They have offered up to extend the lease. And we did add some items in that if we go into the lease, that there's a way for us to get out of the lease as well. So that would be a resolution that we would bring forward at the next meeting, but of course do an executive session first to go over the actual terms.
Any questions?
I do have questions, but they're for executive session.
Okay.
You can email them to me as well, and then that way I have them, the answers for executive.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and then we have the agenda items for the next regular meeting, introduction of the proposed ordinances, the consent agenda, and the approval of the minutes.
And do we have to make a motion?
We have, we need a motion for that?
For is there a
Payment of bills.
resolution to be passed tonight, right?
For the
Payment
of
of
bills? Yeah, there are two resolutions for payment of bills. They're listed on your agenda, so you can do them on one motion if you'd like. We'll do a motion to adopt 2023-209, 2023-210.
Yes, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Roll call, Michelle?
Councilmember Riley?
Yes.
Councilmember Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara?
Yes.
Council President Davidson?
Yes.
Councilmember Demarest and Councilmember Pepperoni are absent.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to open to the public?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Andrew?
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. The tattoo ordinance, why even have a limit on licenses? You know, what's the problem with tattoo parlors? No, you know,
Up to the council what they would want.
yeah, so why have a limit at all? So get rid of the limit, especially if you can deny applications. That's my suggestion. More competition. I don't know why you'd want to restrict people coming into town and have their business, so.
Thank you. Anybody else? John?
Just a follow-up regarding the community gardens ordinance. Maybe you want to consider in the ordinance who's going to maintain the perimeter of the property, because right now it hasn't been cut all summer, the grass on both Elizabeth Street and Church Street. And when we bid out the property and when we bid out the landscape, that was part of the approval, and no one's cut it. It's about 2 feet high. Somebody else would be getting property maintenance violation for that. The second thing is identify who pays for the water. There's water there that the borough still going to maintain and pay for that water? Is that part of the project? Do we meter the water? Do we know how much water is used? Is it shut off in the winter, turned on in the summer? You know, these are things that I think are important. The other thing is that I'd like to talk and ask the council, any updates on the New Jersey Stormwater Assistance Grant? Have we received any notification?
We received that grant. It
You
was
know how
up to
much we got?
25, it was up to $25,000. I think it goes by the cost of what it costs to do the actual permitting, right, Joe?
Yeah, I believe the borough did receive that.
Yeah.
As far as processing the paperwork and receiving the PO.
Right.
I can look into that.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to bring up is the corner of Walnut and First. It's still bad shape down there, those units. I hope no COs are being issued on that property and are sold until that property is cleaned up. And if you drive behind it and look at that site, it's really unsightly. The well, like I had reported to Derek, was never drilled right, and it made a mess, and it's still a mess. The Broad Street project, the county came in last year to assess that. Then there was an outstanding punch list. 79 Broad Street is starting to sink right in front of Fast Copy and the Fun House, and that's where the pavers were removed so the county could fix the pipe. If you look, since that's been fixed, there's a divot now, and there's probably a 3-inch sink. So something's not right, and the county should take a look at that since they were involved in that. Decorative lighting on Maple Place by St. Joe's and Day Funeral Home. I brought this up in a couple weeks ago. That those lights were funded through an MPP grant. That means the borough has sole ownership. Those lights have been out for the past 4 months. That's our responsibility.
I'll look into it, I would know first.
Yeah, and also the pole that was hit on May Street, that was one of the decorative poles. We replaced it with a delineator. May Street, soon to come over the bridge, first right. That I would look into because that decorative pole was also paid, and that's the borough's responsibility. I do want to
Was
thank,
that recently hit? I'm sorry, was that recent?
about a month ago.
Yeah, I think that's an insurance claim that's being processed.
I do want to thank the mayor for the Division Street parking lot, those potholes that were fixed temporarily because that was a mess too. Dumpster ordinance, anything?
Yeah, actually, just today, I began working draft with code.
Excellent. At a meeting, I believe it was a month ago, maybe a little bit, maybe 2 months ago, a resident got up and said, I believe it was Mr. Kelsey, but I won't swear to it, but the statement was, Keyport is a walking town. And it's very true statement. And since we're a walking town, I've brought this to the attention, and I really think you got to take this into some serious consideration. The police department is working very hard, because I see them, to enforce the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. However, there's other factors that are hurting you as much as it's helping the speed limit, them pulling over cars for speeding. And that is Broad Street and First Street is continuously parking on sidewalks. Tonight, before I came here, I drove from my house, 34 Broad Street, to the Keyport High School and turned around. There were 34 cars parked on Broad Street. 21 of them were on the sidewalk. Now, listen, the reason they're parking on the sidewalks is because they don't want their mirrors hit or their cars hit. But once you put them on the sidewalk, you make a clear path for people to go as fast as they want. So we have to enforce, it's against the law to be on the sidewalk. It's against the law. The bottom line is you're not allowed to park on sidewalks unless it's deemed an emergency for snow removal. And then you don't want to be parking on your sidewalk. So those cars should go back on the street, reevaluate Broad Street. If, the county was supposed to come out, there's parking that's still there. that the borough approved that these spots should have been, not there no more, and they're still there. And the cars are constantly parking on sidewalks. And the people from Broad Street, by the schools, have written us saying, we need new sidewalks. Well, if you didn't park on them, you might not need them. So it's a double-edged sword, but you know what? We gotta play by the rules. And the rules are, you will slow traffic down if it's a tight squeeze. The bottom line is, you're not gonna be doing 60. You might be doing 40, even though it's a 25, or 30. But I think it would work if we enforced it. I really do. And
John,
sure.
just so you know, Chief Torres has been working on it. Shannon, do you wanna? She's been working on the parking on the sidewalks.
No, I understand that.
She has, we've been in touch, we've actually had a meeting right before this.
Right, and I think it's good, and I really think that the enforcement of the 25 mile an hour, I know they're out there, I know they're pulling cars over, whether it's warning or tickets, enough warnings, and then you'll get a ticket, and I support that, and I support the job that they're doing. However, the bottom line is, I could pull somebody over, and the cars can be on the sidewalks. They're not helping our case, though. So we have to pull them to the street.
Right, and one more thing, this is for everybody. If you see something, report it to the police, report it to Shannon. They're out there, the police are out there, the cars are out there, Shannon's out there, constantly, the chief. So it is important, if you see something, report it, because then it goes on record, and that's what we need. We need everything on record.
Can you give that phone number that they can call? Yeah.
There's a traffic safety, but also the 732-264-0706. That's considered a non-emergent line. You can call there, you can speak to us. We say it over and over at the meetings, but we heard your point, we met on this. We do understand, we're in works with county, we're in talks with parking issues. There's a bigger issue than just the residents parking on the sidewalks. There's a bigger problem in play as far as, I have right here the road measurements and the sizes and vehicles being pushed over yellow line. These are all things that we are in talks about and meeting on.
Well, that's good, because they're both county roads, so the county should provide that assistance, the traffic study, and which we've asked for
They are.
since. Good. The last item was, Mayor, earlier for the public hearing for the beach park. Just one thing, in 2003, we tried to close the municipal pier at 10 o'clock, and Green Acres told us you couldn't do that because it was on their inventory list, and it's got to be open 24 hours. So you should check with Green Acres before you put a closing of a park.
Right, but we can also, we're already working on the ordinance of the overnight.
Yes.
So that
Oh, that's
will cover
great.
a good portion of that, and that's what we've done.
That's great. That's going to work.
Chief Torres actually has
Good.
implemented that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Donna Purcell, 396 Maple Place. I'd just like to comment on the tattoo ordinance, speaking as the Secretary of the local Board of Health. Through the past few years, I've had numerous inquiries regarding cosmetic tattooing. And, I inquired through our inspector, and he indicates, yep, it's tattooing and it has to fall under tattooing. The only thing would be to change the ordinance. I have advised people through the years to address mayor and council. As I said, you don't ask, you get an answer. The worst they're going to say is no. If there's concern about perhaps winding up with too many of the traditional tattoo parlors, maybe there could be some language, even though it's considered tattooing. Maybe there could be some sort of language that you already, you have 3 and you want to add 3 additional, but only for cosmetic reasons. I don't know if the law would allow that. It's just a suggestion. Thank you.
I want to ask the borough attorney that, because she drafted the ordinance.
Okay.
So we'll get back to you.
Anybody else? Mike?
Mike Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Couple of things. For your next workshop meeting, I would really like to see the issue of the letter that came from the planning board to the mayor and council regarding the need to update the land use requirements for density, alignment with the master plan, and for parking. And really would like to see that as an action item. Also, think about dealing with the nuisance flooding. We've kicked off some work to try to get the Henry Hudson Trail, a drainage ditch, floodway fixed. That needs to be an item for you to set a direction to define how we're going to get that done. Again, request that you have that in the next workshop meeting. The utility poles on First Street, Prospect, all kinds of locations in town, just wrapped with cables and abandoned cables. Company. And we've had this on the item list for years. And so if you could get that into your workshop.
Mike Kim has been addressing that with, you know, the
Different
cable
utilities.
company, the utility companies, that's really where the issues are.
So unfortunately, it's not a priority to a lot of the companies. It doesn't mean that I don't continue to contact them, but there is a measure that as a resident, you can call the Board of Public Utilities and put a complaint in, and that sometimes will get it moving.
And myself and Kim are actually reaching
Yeah.
out to somebody higher than them to get this resolved, because it is throughout
Agreed.
the town. It's on East Front Street, it's throughout, everywhere you look. So we are working on it.
A couple things. This workshop meeting was preceded with a public hearing. I had the perception that workshop meetings weren't going to have things like public hearings in them. Is that, am I misinformed?
Now, we were thinking the same thing as we were sitting up here. We should have a public hearing separate at a regular council meeting. This was
Right.
our first workshop meeting. It was kind of new to us. We're going to get there.
So that sounds good going forward. One other thing is interesting. You're talking about a lease of the building for the Public Works Department. Just history, interesting history. We've had 4 different capital plans to build a Public Works building. And are you aware that back in 2018, there was a plan to build a Public Works building, and it was forecasted to cost $1.2 million, and it was going to be done by 2019. In 2019, we had another capital budget item, a different capital budget number, and again, we were going to spend $1.2 million, and nothing came of it. Did we lose that money? Hopefully it didn't. I know we spent money for design, and then in 2022, we had capital budget acquisition money for $2.5 million to acquire a Public Works building. Seems like this is something that needs attention.
Yeah, Mike, I addressed it last year with Jay Delaney, and we're also addressing it with Kim, and we are working on that, towards that, because that's basically what we would like to see also. We don't want to pay every month a lease, you know, to somebody that we should have owned. You know, so we are looking at that. We have to find the right property for it.
But, Mayor, I think it's fantastic we're looking at it, but we need a status report, either quarterly, so we report, so we know that you're looking at it.
Well, we are looking at it, so I'm letting you know on record right now, we are looking at it, and I might not give you a quarterly status report, but I will tell you half year, I'll let you know where we're at. But it's not gonna be this year, because we're just signing the lease now.
Well, without a status report, a lot of things just fade away. I can give you, Bethany Manor, I haven't got a clue whatever happened. Did they get a pilot? Do they have a pilot funding for units that are not used for seniors? They just faded away. Where is it?
Well, it doesn't fade away, we're still working on it internally. So Kim is constantly on it. Just because she didn't supply to you a status report, she does have a status report that she's working on.
Does the status report go to council? Does council know what's going on?
I do give them status reports, yes, and it also is a workshop item on our list to discuss, which Councilmember McNamara asked to be put on. We also are working with the attorney with meetings with the Bethany Manor.
Again, a good business practice is to have a status report, so everybody knows what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else? Elmer?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. First of all, as far as workshop meetings go, excellent idea. Great idea, the way you get the public more involved and everything like that. And like the regular Borough Council meetings, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I personally think they should be televised on Zoom and televised on cable TV, cable channel 15 for the people who, unfortunately, I realize they're on YouTube, don't get me wrong, but for the people who unfortunately can't get here because they have to work or whatever, more open accountability for government and everything like that. As you all know, I walk this beautiful borough. Maybe not every day like I used to, but I walk it. I see the sidewalks in our borough, public sidewalks in our borough. Folks, some of it's the responsibility of the homeowner, but it's also some of it's responsibility of the borough and stuff too, because I see cracks in our public sidewalks as I walk them and everything like that, and I think they should be improved. And God forbid someone is walking and if it's a borough sidewalk, God forbid someone trips, and of course the borough could be sued for that and everything like that. So, but just calling for improvement of the borough sidewalks, especially with the cracks in our public sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you, Elmer. Anybody else?
Councilmembers, Mayor Moreno, Chief. Callie Galapo, 139 3rd Street, Unit 7. Is it okay to ask about any updates on cannabis?
There's no updates at this time.
Not at this time? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did share your literature though with the mayor and council.
Great.
So they'll have it in there.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anybody else? Motion to close? Motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. This meeting is, oh, motion to adjourn, sorry.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
I just wanted to follow up with the farmer's market and the flea market. Are we collecting money for those? Is that?
I would have to check with Cindy. I don't remember what our plan was.
I mean, that was nothing new, I just wanted to make.
Flea market, yeah.
Flea market, all right.
And the farmer's market, they had said that it was a to be determined number, but.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
Any other questions? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion.